How's it going, everyone? My name is Nick. I am an LP Gym's tech guy. Right now I'm just checking the bit rates real fast and making sure everything is working volume-wise. Are you hitting on me? Alright, you guys, like I said, I'm Nick. I'm the tech guy, and we will be getting this webinar started here in 5 minutes, possibly 6, just to be safe. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Transforming Yourself, the webinar. We're going to be spending at least an hour together, perhaps more, depending on how many questions you have. Take a moment to grab a pen and paper or a pencil, whatever you've got. You might want to take notes here, and you may have questions. And I'm not going to get to any questions until the end, so hold on to your questions, and I will stay on until I answer every single question. There's a lot to cover here. I'm going to move kind of fast. I want to make sure we get everything in. And like I said, if you have any questions, I will get to those. Okay, this, like I said, is Transforming Yourself, and this is also NLP Jim, and this is also Damon Cart. A little bit more about me coming up. When I talk about what you're going to be getting here, you're going to be getting some basic understandings about transformation and your self-concept. Now, this is actually a part of a much larger training that I put on that lasts up to 4 days. So I cannot pack in 1 hour everything that I do in 4 days with this training, but my goal here is to give you some great takeaways so that you can put them into practice right away for yourself, or if you're a coach as well, you could put this into practice in your coaching. So this is what it's really about. The self-concept model can teach you how to strengthen the qualities in yourself that you like and change the qualities that you don't like so that you can have a much better and more satisfying life. This was written by Steve Andreas. The man who created this model and created this workshop also wrote the book by the same name, Transforming Yourself. And I think this is a huge understatement. This is a gross understatement about what this model can do. Of course, it can do all this, but it can do so much more, and that's what we're going to talk about. But first, who am I? Some of you know me from YouTube. I do a lot of YouTube videos. Some of you may not have ever heard of me. My name is Damon Cart, and I like to throw this picture in whenever I can doing a presentation because I think it's really funny. A lot of my friends thought it was really funny. I was in Tokyo with a friend of mine, and I pointed this out because Cart is my last name, and he's like, oh, get a picture in front of me. We don't have time, and it's not really important to what I want to teach you in this webinar, but I've talked about it in many videos. If you're interested, let me know. I'll give you more of the rundown of my history in NLP, which actually started when I was in college. Let's get to where I started my formal training. The first picture here is me and Judith Delosier, as well as Dr. Michael Hall and Robert Dilts. I started my formal training at NLP University, and I expanded my learning with Dr. Hall. I actually hosted him for a workshop here in Santa Cruz, and this picture was taken in Santa Cruz at Robert Dilts' house. Robert Dilts and Judith Delosier were really my first NLP teachers, and I'm still close to them to this day. Second picture here is me with Stephen Gilligan. He was around just like Robert Dilts and Judith Delosier at the beginning, at the creation of NLP. But he got out early, and he doesn't call what he does NLP. He actually spent a lot of time with Milton Erickson. He's considered the father of modern hypnosis. And Stephen spent a lot of time with him and does a lot of teaching today. And I've been to his training, so I've also learned from him. And then the next picture is me with the co-founder of NLP, Richard Bandler. Richard Bandler is quite a colorful character, and love him or hate him, he is an absolutely brilliant human being, and I was very happy to attend one of his trainings and get to meet him. My NLP journey really got interesting when I met this woman by the name of Connie Ray Andreas. Connie Ray Andreas, along with her husband, Steve Andreas, I like to say they wrote the first readable books of NLP. When this picture was taken was when somebody who runs an NLP Institute in San Francisco was hosting her as a teacher for her workshop Coming to Wholeness, said to me, I'm going to be out of town, Damon, would you facilitate this? Meaning, would you pick Connie Ray up at the airport, make sure she gets to her hotel, facilitate the training, make sure everything goes off like it should, take her to dinner, do all the things, whatever she needs, and you get to go to the training for free, and you get to meet Connie Ray Andreas and hang out with her. And I thought, cool. I didn't know too much about her. I didn't know how good of an NLP or how influential she was in NLP until I met her, and I started to realize this woman was a treasure of NLP knowledge and of NLP history. So of course, I asked her tons of questions, and she answered all of them, and she was just such a lovely human being to be around. She left a great impression on me, and it was wonderful to work with her. She went home to Colorado, where she lives, and I thought, well, I don't know when I'll ever see her again. I hope it's soon, but it probably not too likely that I will see her anytime soon. But a few months later, I get an email from this guy, her husband, Steve Andreas. And as soon as I saw the email, I thought to myself, I either really did something well or I did something really bad. It was an awesome email. He just wrote to me and said, Connie Ray had some wonderful things to say about you. And I'm just extending myself and I'd like to help you out if I can. I just thought, wow, oh my God, like this guy's an NLP legend and he's offering to help me out. Like, who am I? So of course I jumped on that. It was a perfect timing because I really hit an NLP plateau. I didn't feel like I was progressing in my understanding or my knowledge or my skills. And I was going to my teachers and I was asking them for help and saying, what next? What do I do? And they just said, well, keep practicing, keep doing what you're doing. But I was really unsatisfied with this. So I started hitting Steve with as many questions as I possibly could, and he was answering them, and I was really learning. My understanding started to move, the plateau started to break. And then I started learning some interesting things about Steve, and I didn't know all these things until people were telling me, that guy's mentoring you? Did you know that he was mentored by Abraham Maslow? And I didn't know that, and I was actually reading some of Maslow's books at the time. Put it this way, if it wasn't for Abraham Maslow, we probably wouldn't have had the human potential movement, which out of that is where we got NLP and things like Landmark and a lot of these great technologies that maybe not use the same name to this day, but they've transformed into something else. But there was this amazing period in the 1970s where all these new technologies, mental technologies or psychological technologies were coming out. A lot of this came from Maslow really pushing the field of psychology to stop focusing so much on pathology and everything that's wrong with us and start focusing on what's right with us, and let's move in that direction. Now also, Steve Andreas learned Gestalt therapy from Fritz Perls. Fritz Perls was one of three of the main models in NLP, that Richard Bandler and John Grinder. He was one of the men who they modeled, which then became what NLP is known today, along with Virginia Satir and Milton Erickson. But he had already learned Gestalt therapy from Fritz Perls before NLP was even created. And then, of course, he later met Richard Bandler and John Grinder, learned NLP from them, became an NLP teacher and also an NLP author. And then he went to see Virginia Satir and learned from her, and then also from Milton Erickson. So he's the only NLPer that I know of who's worked with both Maslow and all three of the models that NLP was modeled from. Not even Richard Bandler and John Grinder ever actually met Fritz Perls. They modeled him from video. I also started teaching NLP. I had started teaching it probably right before I met Steve Andreas, and I created NLP Gym because I wanted to focus on learning NLP and cultivating NLP skill just like you would work out, just like you would cultivate a physical skill. Because what I saw was that a lot of people were going to NLP trainings, but they were never practicing and they weren't getting any better. And people were coming to me and saying, why are you getting better? You've been to all the same trainings that I've been to, but you seem to be getting better and better. And I would just say, well, have you been practicing? I mean, that's basically all that I did that was different. So I created NLP Gym to really focus on practice. And like I said, I had reached a plateau around this time, and I also started doing NLP videos, started my YouTube channel. This is actually a picture of me teaching Transforming Yourself in Australia. Well, after a while, Steve couldn't keep up with my questions because he had other things to do rather than answer my questions. And he eventually said, you know what, Damon, go read this book that I wrote. I think it's going to answer most, if not all, of your questions. And if you still have questions, of course, feel free to come back to me. Most of my questions were answered in the introduction. I could not believe how incredible this book is. It taught me how NLP worked. Before this, it felt like there was all these random sort of parts of NLP just out there floating. And it was this technology, this model that really pulled it all together for me. It made me understand why NLP works when it works and why it doesn't work when it doesn't work. And immediately I started using this model to transform. And the first quality that I use, and I'll get into this more about how we break down the self-concept into qualities. The first quality I used was gratitude, and I had an immediate transformation. I wrote out the results that I had to Steve, and he was like, "You are on this. You got it. Keep going. Keep practicing. Keep doing this." And I kept doing it, and I kept reporting back my results, and he kept giving me feedback, and it was just this amazing mentorship that I was undergoing and a transformation at the same time. And it finally got to the point where Steve said, "Why don't you teach this?" And I was like, "What?" I hadn't even thought about teaching this, even though I was already teaching NLP. I had not even considered it. And he said, "Well, no one else understands this model as well as you do besides me. And I'm retired. No one else is teaching it. Teach it." And I just remember thinking, there's no way I can teach this. And it wasn't that I couldn't get up and stand up in front of people and teach it. I definitely could do that. I'm not even sure what it was. It felt like I had found the Holy Grail. And now someone was saying, "Okay, now it's your turn to go and represent this. I'm passing this on to you." And it just felt like it was overwhelming. But I kept working with the model. I started incorporated in my coaching with my clients. My clients started having these amazing breakthroughs. And then I came back to Steve and I said, "I want to teach this. Do I have your blessing?" And he was like, "Absolutely, go for it." So let's get into the model now. Okay, you have beliefs about the world and you have beliefs about yourself. Of course, we're going to focus on the beliefs that you have about yourself, but let's consider the difference. What you believe about the world and the people in it tends to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think everybody sucks and you believe that, your mind is going to sort to find people who suck, and it'll basically get rid of all the information that's coming in of people who are not sucking. This is what we call sorting, and your beliefs are like filters that sort for the information to fulfill your belief, to make sure that you are correct. Your self-concept is a belief you cannot escape, which makes it more important than your beliefs about others and your beliefs about the world. Think about it like this. If I believe that I live in a cruel world where people are just cruel, and this is my belief about the world, I can escape this. I can go camping in the woods and I can get away from everybody and I can get some relief from this. But what about if I believe that I'm a cruel person and I don't value cruelty? In fact, I value the opposite. I value kindness and I feel like I'm a cruel person. I can't escape that. I can't go camping somewhere. I can't go seclude myself or isolate myself because that belief is about me, and you take your self-concept everywhere you go. And this is why a lot of people suffer. Your self-concept goes with you everywhere and affects everything you experience. So how did this happen? How did you create a self-concept to begin with? This model explains a lot of how you actually did that. At best, it's a haphazard development. That's what happened. You don't have any conscious recollection of the beginnings of you creating your self-concept. It just started happening. And most of it has happened unconsciously. You created your self-concept mostly through unconscious trial and error, a combination of good and bad experiences, as well as from what your parents and teachers told you. So you had these experiences, and then you also had this heavy influence from the authority figures in your life. It's not limited to just teachers and parents, of course. It's whatever the major influences were in your life. In other words, it was a haphazard and accidental process. And if you got lucky, you developed a useful one that works well. Some people are just like that. I've known people like this. They just have a self-concept that is just really solid. It's accurate. It's durable. They have a healthy sense of confidence about themselves and self-esteem. It's not overinflated. And these are the lucky ones. Very few people, and you probably know some too, but very few people are like this. Most of us are not that lucky because we created a self-concept that lets us down when we need it most. Or worse, we feel unworthy and undeserving. I am not one of those NLP gurus who likes to jump around and yell and scream and make it seem like I've never had a bad day in my life. And there are plenty of those out there, not just NLPers, but also your different types of self-help gurus. Very few people are actually like that. They're just very good at covering up these feelings. I dealt with self-worth issues up until just a few years ago. And how I dealt with it was using this model. I'm not saying I'm 100% cured from all possible self-worth issues. One could pop up. I could deal with it. I know how to deal with it. I'm not afraid of that happening. It's been probably about 2 or 3 years since I've had anything like that come up. Some of us even develop paranoia as a result of a poorly created self-concept, and some become narcissistic. Narcissism is actually a very unsteady, unhealthy self-concept, and it's the overcorrection, or it's the attempt to overcorrect the insecurity. So narcissism is not a person who really believes that they're as great as they think they are. It's because they have a very weak self-concept that they overcompensate. And then paranoia has a lot to do with perceiving the world in the negative. It's about looking at the world and constantly focusing on what you don't want instead of what you want, or focusing on who you are not rather than who you are. And an example of this would be, I'm not a cruel person, instead of saying I'm a kind person. If you say I'm a kind person, then you're focusing on what you want or who you want to be, and you're focusing on the positive. Whereas if you constantly say I'm not a cruel person, what do you think you have to keep thinking about? You have to keep thinking about cruelty. And there's a lot more that goes into this, but ultimately this leads to paranoia. Okay, so what is this webinar not about? It's not about the philosophical implications of self-concept or theoretical problems of consciousness. Now, I think this discussion is fascinating. I like this stuff. I'm not saying I don't like it. That's why it's not being included. It's just not part of what this training is. It's not part of what the self-concept model is. But I enjoy these conversations, and I think they do have value. It's also not about the chemical, neurological, or biological relationship to self-concept. That is yet another fascinating conversation, but it's not what this is about. So what is this about? It's about your own personal experience of your own self-concept and how you can learn how it works, strengthen it, and change it when you want to, so that you can live a more successful and satisfying life. Really think about that. Can imagine if you can transform at will with predictable results. This is what personal development is all about. This is what therapy is all about. It is taking who you are and transforming it into the you want to be. And I think we lose track of this in personal development because we get so wrapped up in solving problems or achieving goals and persuasion and influence. And all those things are important, and they all will come with transformation. But when you put transformation first, you're solving this problem at a much higher level. And when you solve this problem at a much higher level, it generalizes to most, if not all, areas of your life and solves a lot of these problems in one shot. You can very quickly become a very charismatic person who has solved so many of the other problems that used to plague you. So instead of taking all those little small problems one at a time, we go straight to the self-concept. And that's powerful. Okay, so some of you may be offended by a sales pitch. Ooh, scary, isn't it? So warning, get out now if you are offended by a sales pitch. Because yes, at the end of this, I will be making a sales pitch. Like I said, I cannot possibly teach the self-concept model in 1 hour. I'm going to give you some gold nuggets. If you want the treasure chest, though, more on that later. Let's get back to the training. A couple of things to keep in mind is when it comes to anything, not just this model, but when it comes to anything, is get out of your own way. This doesn't work unless you use it. You can just watch this training or read the book and expect that it's going to work. That doesn't work. You have to take action. You have to do the exercises. Also, perfection is the enemy. That will not serve you. Perfection does not serve you. Practice as you learn the model. Forget perfection. Life is messy. So is learning something. Don't wait to have a greater conceptual understanding before trying these exercises and this model. A greater conceptual understanding is not going to teach you how this really works, and it's not going to give you transformations. So what is the self-concept anyway? Well, really, it's a generalization about yourself. It's a lie. It's not a thing. It's a process. Why did I call it a lie? Some people struggle with this. If anything is less than the absolute truth, then it's a lie. Your self-concept cannot possibly, no concept can possibly deliver the entire truth. So you have this idea about yourself. That's what the self-concept is. There's no way you could possibly be able to cognize the entirety of yourself. And that's not to even mention the way that other people are perceiving you, because that's also a part of who you are. They have their perception, you have your inner perception, theirs would be an outer perception. So you don't really know. So it's a lie. It's a generalization. Generalizations are not facts. Generalizations leave out a lot of distinctions and a lot of details. So if I say that I'm resilient, and I believe that I am, I'm making a generalization about myself. And I'm leaving out all of the times that I quit. There have been times that I've quit things. Sometimes it's really wise to know when to quit. That's not resilient, or that's not persistent. That would be another quality. But I can say that about myself because it's a generalization, and I can leave out some of those times where I quit something, or that I wasn't persistent, or that I wasn't resilient. But in general, keyword there being general, I'm a persistent and resilient person, and I truly believe that. And you have qualities about yourself that you feel the same way, and there are times when you're not that quality, or you haven't acted in that quality, but you overlook that and you make a generalization that you are that quality. So the self-concept, one way to call it is your ego, but that has a negative connotation to it. So most people don't like to refer to their self-concept as their ego. Self-concept has a more neutral connotation to it. Some people will call it the self-image, and that's not inaccurate, but it's also not the only thing that you do. That you use all your senses to know yourself, primarily sight, sound, and kinesthetic. So self-image is leaving out a lot of detail. And then some people might say, well, it's your identity. But identity welcomes a lot of other stuff. Identity welcomes those theoretical, philosophical, neurological, and biological arguments or theories. We don't want to go there with this. And then you might think it's that thing that Freud talked about. Let's talk about values. If your self-concept is the map of yourself, your values are the headlights. When I start any coaching session with a new client, my first question to them is, what do you want? What's behind your wants, what's behind your desires, is the attempt to fulfill a value or a set of values. And when you know what those are, those values light the way in a dark world. Values are at the heart of every vision. The visionaries that we've had throughout the world have always been very in touch with their values and project their values out into the future. Every decision you make and all of your behaviors are an attempt to express, experience, and or fulfill one or more of your values. So do you think it might be a good idea to know your values, to elicit them? Because for most people, they're unconscious. For most people, they never really know what their true values are. How often do you hear people say, just be yourself? Well, what does that even mean? Just be yourself. I get kind of irritated when people say this because we all want to be authentic. We all want to be ourselves, but who are we? How do I know who I am? How do I know what my true self is? Due to demands of others or from others, culture, society, religion, idealism, we create false selves and project and impose false selves on others based on how we or they should be rather than who we actually are or who they actually are. So we get caught up playing this game of, well, I should be this, I should value this or that. And if I've got to do it, then you've got to do it too. And if you're not doing it, if you're not playing the false self game, then I'm going to be upset because I'm playing this false self game and this doesn't feel good and you should be this and I should be that. This just leads to suffering. So this process of transforming yourself is a process of self-discovery and self-creation at the same time. And this is super exciting because this isn't just about being yourself. This is about being yourself and creating the self you want to be. The difference between self-esteem and self-concept, this is a very important distinction. A lot of people confuse the two. They think it's the same thing or they use these terms interchangeably, but they're very different. The self-concept is a generalization about who you believe yourself to be. Your self-esteem is how you feel about that generalization of who you are. When I think about my sense of self, of who I am, and I think to myself, oh, I like that. I like who I am. That evaluation of saying, I like who I am, that's self-esteem. That's my evaluation of who I am. If I say, I don't like who I am, then again, that's that evaluation. That's lack of self-esteem. In other words, your self-esteem is your evaluation of you. So how do we find out what our values are? Well, we elicit them. Most of them are unconscious. Now, what you can start doing is just ask yourself what's important to you about whatever. So if you came to me and you say, I want a new car, then I would say, well, what's important to you about that? And then you might say, well, I want to drive a more comfortable car, or I want to be perceived as high status. And then I would say, well, what's important about that? Or what will that get for you? Or what will that allow you to do? What will that allow you to be? What will that allow you to have? The more I ask those types of questions, the tendency is the person goes higher and higher into higher and higher beliefs. They become more general beliefs because the higher you go up the logical levels, the more general that becomes. So we go up and up to more powerful, but also more general values. So values are generalizations about experiences that are really, really important to you. So you elicit your highest values and then you ask yourself if those values exist as qualities of who you are. This is super powerful, okay? So if you say, I want more money, then I would say, what's important about having more money? And you say security, and I say, okay, great. What's important about security? And then you say, oh, I get to relax. I say, what's important about relaxing, or what will that do for you? And you say, I will feel a sense of freedom. And then from there, I can say, well, what will that do for you? And you say, I will feel happy, the freedom to be happy. So security, relaxation, freedom, and happiness are all values. Now, how do these translate to qualities of your self-concept? Do they show up in your self-concept? Are you a secure person? Are you a relaxed person? Now, freedom is a little tricky here because freedom isn't really a quality. It's always contextual. Free to be who, free to do what, or free from what, or free to have what. You have to place freedom into a context. But I could also say, are you a happy person? Now, if you're not sure about these things, if these happen to be your highest values, and you're not sure if these are certain qualities, solid, certain qualities of your self-concept, you're not tapping into your full potential. You're not experiencing your full self-esteem. You're not feeling as meaningful and purposeful as you could be. This is super important because most people are not experiencing their highest values as qualities of their self-concept. And if they were, their life would be radically different. If you do that, you will become happier. You will feel more self-esteem. You will be more confident. You will feel more meaning and purpose in your life. Not only that, it will be automatic. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to think, oh, I need to do something where I feel purposeful, or I have to go and do something that will boost my confidence or my self-esteem. No, it happens automatically. Let's talk more about self-esteem. What happens when your self-concept is not aligned with your values? You will experience low self-esteem. For example, I used this example already. If I value kindness, but I behave in cruel ways, my self-esteem is going to go down. I'm going to feel bad about myself. If I value intelligence, but I do stupid things, I'm going to feel bad about myself. My self-esteem is going to go down. My confidence is going to go down. My sense of well-being, my sense of meaning and purpose, all will go down. We've all experienced this, and now you know why. And now you know how to go the other way. Align your self-concept with your values, and in the words of one of my coaching clients, a medical doctor, you will fire on all of your cylinders. So this is basically how it works. Like I said, when they line up, when everything lines up, self-esteem goes through the roof. But it's not just self-esteem, it's confidence, it's that meaning and purpose that I keep talking about, it's that overall happiness. So it starts with your experiences. You have experiences, and then you collect enough of these experiences that you categorize them. That's a good experience, or that's a bad experience. That's a work experience or a professional experience. That's a relationship experience or a loving experience or an emotional experience. And then when you're collecting and creating these categories, when you form these categories as they relate to you or to your sense of self, we call them qualities. Qualities could be intelligent, resilient, curious, charismatic, kind. These are all good examples of qualities. When you collect enough of these qualities and you put them all together, you go to a higher generalization called self-concept. Your self-concept is made of all of your qualities, and your qualities are made up of all of your experiences. So when the qualities of your self-concept line up with your highest values, you get self-esteem. What happens is you believe you are what you value, and you value what you do. So the whole thing here is you cannot go at self-esteem directly. We try to do that, right? We try to do that with affirmations, but it doesn't work. And gets to why the law of attraction and affirmations aren't working for you. And I've tried it. I've tried affirmations. You stand in front of a mirror and you say the same thing over and over and over. You build yourself up. You feel pretty good. Maybe you feel better than pretty good. You feel like, okay, I'm ready to take on the world. And then you step out your front door and somebody cuts you off in traffic, or somebody says something mean to you, and suddenly you crash. And all those affirmations, all that time you spent saying this same thing over and over is gone. I know you've had this experience. I've had this experience. And when people get honest with me about affirmations, same thing. So why is that happening? More on that in a moment. So with the law of attraction, I'm not saying that there isn't something to the law of attraction. There's something to it. But as it's marketed, as it's taught, what it has is lack of how. How do you do this? What is it? What are the techniques? What are the processes? And it's like, oh, you just visualize what you want showing up on your front door and it just happens. No, it doesn't. I've done this many times. It doesn't happen. Now, there have been times in my life where I sort of had this idea of something or a vision or an image, and then, I don't know, a few years later, I realized I achieved it or I got it. But it's not as simple as just doing that, because when people get honest with me, I know some people are really into the law of attraction, but when they get really honest with me, they're not getting what they want. And they're just putting a lot of hope into it. They're hoping that it works. And maybe sometimes they just kind of hit it, and they maybe get something that they want, and that gives them more hope that it'll work some more. But when you're relying on hope, you're in scarcity. Businesses don't thrive on hope. Success doesn't happen based on hope. You got to know how. You got to know how to do this thing. You need to have a plan, and you need to work at it. Affirmations also cause unconscious conflict, because if I'm saying these things about myself and they're not actually true. So for example, if I don't really feel successful, defined by my own ideals or ideas of what success is, by my own definition, if I'm not really successful, but I stand in front of a mirror and I say over and over that I'm successful, well, my conscious mind might like this and feels good about it, but there's a part of my unconscious that knows this is not true. And in fact, by saying it over and over, it actually strengthens this part of you that says, no, 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 this isn't true. And what happens is you start to build and create a conflict, an inner conflict, which just drains you of energy and cuts you off from your resources. And it's also lack of precision. There's nothing precise about the law of attraction and affirmations. You cannot measure the results. You cannot predict the results with any accuracy whatsoever. And this is why it's not really working. It is just as haphazard as you creating your self-concept from the time that you were born. And sometimes when I explain the self-concept model, people say, well, you just explained the law of attraction and how affirmations work. Yes and no. I just explained why more so they don't work, because they lack precision. The self-concept model is all about precision. Let's go back to self-esteem and the causes of low self-esteem. So like I had mentioned before, when your self-concept isn't aligned with your values, your self-esteem goes down. And most of the time we have low confidence because we're underachieving. And another really harmful practice that most of us engage in is comparing ourselves to others. When you compare yourself to others, If you're doing it in a way that makes you feel superior, sure, it's going to make you feel good, but not in a good way. This is disconnecting you from other people. It's separating yourself from other people. If you play that game, you will inevitably run into people who are so-called better than you, which will then make you feel inferior. So you're either feeling this unstable sense of superiority, or you're feeling this down feeling of being inferior. Neither one is good. Get out of the comparison game. The only time comparison is good is when you can do it in a healthy way, where you see that somebody has something that you don't, or they can do something that you can't, and you think to yourself, okay, if that person can do it, I can do it too. Let me look at what they're doing and I'll work up to it. I'll do what they're doing in order to achieve what it is they're achieving. That's not an issue of self-worth, but when you start putting your self-worth into this and your personal value into this, and when you're comparing yourself with others, it's never going to help you. It's only going to hurt you. And the other one is chasing external values and falling short of fulfilling them. So I go chase after whatever my culture, my society, government, whatever they value, and I go chasing that and I achieve it. I might feel good for about 24 or 48 hours, and then I go, well, what was that about? I don't feel good about this anymore, because it was never really your value to begin with. So of course it doesn't fulfill you. So then you have to go chase another value or chase another goal. But it's even worse when you fall short of that. Think about something that your family values or your society values, and you go chasing it and you fail. It feels miserable. And you don't even realize that even if you had achieved it, it wouldn't fulfill you anyway. That makes it even worse. So important to know what your own personal values are apart from those external values. We're working on self-esteem, not other esteem. Here are the elements of a healthy self-concept. I really don't have time, unfortunately, to go over each one of them and unpack them. But in general, when we talk about self-concept, it's super important that your self-concept and everything that this model is about and all the exercises are about creating a self-concept in you that is durable, resilient, and lasting. There when you need it most. Also accurate. It's really important that your self-concept is a good predictor of your attitudes and behaviors, because you don't want to be the one in the room who thinks you're something and everyone else thinks that you're not. You want to be accurate. It's never going to be 100% accurate, but you want to be accurate in general. You want your self-concept to be self-correcting and responsive to feedback. So when you veer off and you violate one of your values, you know it. You have that information in front of you and you accept it, and you immediately go, oh, okay, I went left when I should have gone right, or I went right when I should have gone left. Now I need to correct that. But if you're in denial and you don't want to own up to your mistakes, or you don't accept your mistakes, or you can't accept feedback from others or from just life, you're not going to be able to make the corrections necessary to correct your mistakes and get back in line with your values. You also want your self-concept to be unconscious. You don't want to be thinking about it all the time. Thinking about yourself usually is what causes you to make mistakes. You think about when you're in flow because you're not self-conscious. So if I believe that I am resilient, or if I believe that I'm persistent, intelligent, or kind, and I'm always thinking about it, then I'm kind of detached and I'm more likely to make a mistake. But if I know that I am those qualities, and so much so that they're just unconscious, then I'm automatically going to act in that way without having to think about it. I will act kind, I will act intelligent without ever having to think about it. Also, creating a self-concept that connects with other people, not separates. Very important to be very connecting. That actually makes your self-concept even stronger. And of course, we want to be free of self-importance and arrogance and all the other signs of egotism. Like I mentioned, arrogance, self-importance, egotism, those are all signs of a very weak self-concept. It's the signs of a weak self-concept trying to overcompensate. So one of these I wanted to talk a little bit more about, because I think this is one of those nuggets that you can take home with you and really use and implement right away, and that's accuracy. So what happens is that there's a lot of people with low competence and low confidence. Okay, fair enough. Actually, this is not a bad thing. If your competence is low and your confidence is low, well, it's not going to help you to have high confidence if you have low confidence. Actually, that's pretty dangerous. And oftentimes people will come to me and want more confidence for something they've never done before. No, you want to be confident about something because you have done it before. You want to be confident because you know that you're good at it. If you've never flown a plane, or maybe you've flown a plane once, your confidence is very low. It's not a good idea to have high confidence. It's good to have low confidence. That lets you know. That's your inner wisdom letting you know you have more to learn. So if you have high confidence and high confidence, this is great. The reason why is because you're matching. Your competence and your confidence match, and you will achieve a lot. When you're really lined up like this, where your confidence matches your competence, you're going to try more things. You're going to go for it. You're going to achieve the big goals. You're going to have that confidence and go for those extraordinary achievements because you feel that you have the competence to do it. And since you have high confidence, you're not so worried about if you fail. You're just going to go out there and do it and see what's possible. Now, if you have high confidence and low confidence, this is what a lot of people come to me for coaching. I'm very happy to help people in this area because this is kind of sad, actually. This is the person who is really good and has a lot of confidence but won't achieve much because he or she doesn't have the confidence to really go for it, to really go out there and do it. These are the people who their successes really surprise them because their confidence is so low. This doesn't really serve them to have low confidence. A lot of people value modesty and humility, and those things are great, but true modesty and true humility aren't low confidence. When you match your competence with your confidence, it's a much healthier way to be. And of course, low confidence, high confidence, this is danger. You haven't snow skied much, but you have a lot of confidence about it, and you're going to go up these really high, steep mountains. That's a bad idea, especially if you have responsibilities that could possibly endanger other people's lives because your competence is low, but you think you're good at something, or you think you've got it all together and you know what you're doing. That's dangerous. And of course, you've met people like this. They're not really good at it, but they believe they are. And that's because they do not have a very accurate self-concept. So there's all these other parts, the process elements of self-concept. I, of course, do not have time to go over all of these, but one I wanted to point out really quickly is number of examples. Think of a quality that you value highly about yourself, and think about how you know that. What are your experiences that back up that quality? Start pulling in or allow in more and more of those memories, of those experiences. And the more you do that, the stronger that quality will get because you have more and more information about it. And the more you pull this into your conscious awareness, the stronger it will get. So that's another one of those little nuggets I wanted to drop off to you. So think about that. Anything you want to strengthen your confidence about, go in, find those experiences, and start allowing them into your conscious awareness, and it will get stronger. So we also deal with aspects of time, because time is also conceptual in the sense that how we sort time within ourselves. And this is a really fun part to learn about, because you can do all sorts of time distorting and changing time and working with time to really empower yourself and to really give yourself that sense of the strength of knowing who you are throughout time and into the future. When you're working with the future, you can sort of pre-program how you want to be. You create a feed-forward system of how you want to behave and who you want to be in the future. It's really incredible how that will guide you into being more the you want to be. There's aspects of content. Again, I don't have time to go into all of this. It's in the bigger training. But right now, take a screenshot and you can learn more about it just by reading what's on this slide. And there's a full outline. This is sort of the map. This is sort of the model. There's a lot more, of course, but we work with three main parts, process elements of the self-concept, the aspects of time, and the aspects of content. And of course, there is so much more. There's counterexamples. There's transforming mistakes, building a new quality, transforming an uncertain quality, dealing with the not self, the negated part of you, the unwanted qualities, transforming those into wanted and valued qualities, and then understanding the boundaries of yourself, also connecting more with others. There is just a lot here because you are complex. And it's not that this model is complicated. It's actually quite simple. There are a lot of details. It's just rather complex, not complicated. Transform yourself now. You can get started right away. Think about this. Throughout all the ups and downs of your life, your self-concept has carried through time and space. It will always be with you. When you were 3 years old, you don't say when he or she was 3 years old, you say when I was 3 years old. You still have a connection to that sense of self way back when. And that's amazing because you're a completely different person now in every way, physically, mentally. You have different beliefs. You look completely different. You're larger, I hope. So it is amazing how this carries through time. And when you think about yourself in the future, you say when I will or when I am. You don't say when he or she will. So this sense of self, this amazing generalization is so powerful. It carries through time, and it also carries through space, because when I travel to a different country and I step off the plane, and I might be in a country I've never been before, people I've never seen before, never talked to, they speak a different language, I still have my same sense of self. So it doesn't matter what's going on, I'm still me. Transformation comes from within. You don't need to walk on hot coals or prove yourself in any way. I think Tony Robbins has a lot of great things to say, and his content is really good. I don't agree with it all, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think he's got plenty of good stuff. I've yet to meet a person who has walked on hot coals at one of his trainings and had this true sense of confidence and self-esteem that I've been talking about in this webinar. So you have nothing to prove. You don't need to walk on glass or hot coals or go do some quest in order to come into your own and have a strong, solid sense of self. It comes from within. You don't need to seek it outside of yourself. The other thing is precision. This model is about creating predictable results instead of hoping for change. Change is not as hard as a lot of people think it is. It's only hard if you're clinging to the old self or to your old ways. And most people cling to that because they don't have any vision going forward. They don't really know who they want to be. They don't really know what their values are. So it's hard to let go of the old ways and the old self and become the you know you always could be, the you who is fulfilling your potential. And then value. Most people, like I said, never learn what their values are. What would it be like to live a life that you value and be the person you value and have the confidence, purpose, self-esteem, and meaning, and all have it happening automatically? I do have time for answering questions. I first want to say thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I love talking about this. I love sharing it. It is with humble gratitude that I got to be mentored by Steve Andreas. I got to call him a mentor and have worked with him and still working with him. The whole process of learning this model and being mentored by him was one of the most amazing things in my life to this point. And the wonderful thing about that is now I feel like I'm passing this on to you. I feel like I get to do this with other people, because when you sign up for this program, you get to be a part of a private Facebook group where you can post your experiences, you can post your questions, and I follow up with you. I answer your questions, I mentor you, I help you troubleshoot if you have any problems. And I also do live calls. During those live calls, I can answer your questions in real time. Sorry, somebody was trying to call me. Okay. Well, thank you for sitting in on that webinar. And if you're wondering why I have a busted lip, that was at jiu-jitsu practice this morning. Before I get to your questions, you should see a payment button coming up. If you're interested in taking the training, Transforming Yourself, you will get instant online access when you take the training or when you sign up for the training. It is not live video. It is trainings that are done pre-recorded, and then of course you get admittance to the Facebook page, the private Facebook group, where I will be going live periodically for that. And also you can post your questions and your comments, and then of course I will answer them. I answer all of them. And hopefully you get feedback from your peers as well. And so this will be open until Saturday. Saturday we will close enrollment. So, and people have already been asking me when am I going to be doing this again? I don't know. So we're launching it now. So now is the time. So sign up for this now, and you have lifetime access to the training. And of course, like I said, you can ask me whatever questions. I help you get unstuck if you get stuck. I basically get to have the same experience with you that I had with Steve, but I get to be in Steve's position where I get to mentor you, and it gives me great joy and gratitude and humble gratitude to be passing this on to others like you. I was very blessed that Steve passed it on to me and the experience that I had being mentored by him, and it's wonderful that I can now do that for you. Okay, so sign up for it. Make sure, if you don't sign up right now, make sure you do it before Saturday or by Saturday. I'm giving away free books for the first people who sign up. I still have some left, so if you want the Transforming Yourself book, sign up, and you may be getting in enough time before I run out. So I'll mail out those books to you. All right, let's take a look at the questions here. Well, hello to you too from Las Vegas. Let's see. Well, you're very welcome here to Evolve. Just thanking me for my compassion, passion, and charity for this great work to help improve the quality of people's lives. Well, it gives me great joy to do that. Thank you. Let's see. Self-esteem is how you feel about the general. Yeah, exactly. Somebody just making a comment about that. The full calendar until the 1st of August. Will this work for me? How much is the course? So the course is $347. There is a payment plan. We split that payment in two. It's a little more to go with the payment plan. That's just because I get fees every time through PayPal that somebody purchases something from me. So it's just really to cover the fees. So $347 for a one-time payment, and then you can split that into two payments over 2 months. And you say, will it work for you? Your full calendar. So you want to maintain a certain momentum. In the intro video, I talk about this, where you want to maintain a certain momentum. So get started on the training. My suggestion would be to work on an hour a day. Most people can find an hour a day. Some people think they cannot find an hour a day to work on this, but most people can find at least an hour a day to work on this. That means watching a video or two, or maybe even three, some of them are short, and also doing whatever the exercise is that I give you. Make sure you do those exercises. That's where the real learning actually happens. So if you have a full schedule, well, put it this way, if you have a full schedule, if you can find at least an hour a day, I think you're going to be fine. You could do a half an hour a day, but I would hope that you keep the momentum going a little bit more than that. And you can do maybe an hour every other day. I think a little bit every day, and for anything almost, a little bit every day is better than one time a week, several hours for one time, once a week. And if you do get kind of bogged down in your schedule, you have the access to the course for a lifetime when you're fully paid. So if you have to put it off for a little while and then get back to it, you still have it. I hope that answers your question. All right, so Lou asks, will this model be helpful for people at different levels of their personal growth and development? Absolutely. Is it better for beginners, intermediate, or advanced? What I love about this model is you don't have to know NLP before learning it. If you know NLP, this will be much easier for you because you'll already have an understanding of the concepts that I use or that I speak of, and you'll have some working knowledge and practice and experience with this. But you can definitely jump in with no NLP training whatsoever and start learning this. And I was talking about, I went live earlier, so if you heard this live, I apologize for the redundancy. But I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu about 2 months ago, and my instructor told me that it's like a puzzle, and you're never done putting that puzzle together. And there's also, in this class, there are black belts, brown belts, purple belts, blue belts, white belts. So you have people of every caliber, every skill set, every skill level. But the white belts still are in the same training room under the same instruction as the black belts, the brown belts, the blue belts, and the purple belts, because you jump in. Now, of course the other ones are more advanced. So if we're learning a new technique, the black belt's probably going to be able to pull off that technique better than I can because I'm a white belt. So that doesn't mean that I'm going to get discouraged and I shouldn't do it. No, I'm starting my journey, and they've been on the journey for a while. So think of it that way. Think of it as a puzzle. Think of it as a journey. Get started now, and in a few years, who knows where you'll be. I think it'll be pretty amazing. And that's the thing. It's a practice. You know, NLP is a practice. This model's a practice. I've been practicing NLP for over 6 years. I've been practicing this model in particular for 4 years, and I feel like I'm still growing with it. I still feel like I have a lot more to learn. Putting together this program, I learned a lot more just doing that. So there's a lot more here for me to go and learn. So I saw this great quote. I think it was by Hickson Gracie. It says, "Don't be discouraged by starting something that seems like it'll take a long time to do, because the time is going to pass anyway. And if you don't do it, well, the time still passed, and you haven't gotten it done, or you haven't done anything." Of course, I'm paraphrasing. It was much more concise the way he said it. But it's a great quote, because time is going to pass anyway, so you might as well jump in and get started now. All right, let's see. So she's also, okay, so the second question, is it better for beginners, intermediate, or advanced? There's no better. There's just, do you want to learn this? I think this is the most amazing thing in the world, so to me, I think everybody should want to learn this, but I'm not a preacher about it. I'm not a televangelist about it. So if you're not interested, okay. There's many things in life that I'm not interested in either. Yes, absolutely. Anybody at any level can jump in and learn this and master it. Okay, when listing examples of things I am confident in, I come up with some. When listing examples of traits, I want there is a yeah, but afterwards. So those traits, we could call them qualities. I think they're probably the same thing that you're talking about here. That would be what we call an ambiguous quality, a yeah, but. Or, so like if I were to ask someone, say someone has an ambiguous quality, well, say it's kindness. They're ambiguous about kindness. What that would look like, or what that would be like, is you'd say, "Are you a kind person?" And they would say, "Yeah, but." Or they would say, you'd see them, a lot of times their eyes shift back and forth like they're comparing two things. Or they'll shift side to side, or they'll do this. You'll see some sort of shifting side to side, and they'll say, "Well, I am sometimes and I'm not sometimes." That's an ambiguous quality. So those traits that you're talking about are probably what I would call qualities, and they're probably ambiguous. If you want to list a few of what they are here, my new life on Mars, if you want to list some of those traits, I can tell you if I would refer to those as qualities. Sometimes people get skills and qualities mixed up. All right, so we got another question here. If we stick to a steady learning pace, about how long should it take to complete? I think I had my first transformation probably the second day that I was working with this model, maybe third day. And this was going by the book and also talking to Steve about it. So if you go at a steady pace, it's not like it's all going to happen on the last day. You're going to start experiencing shifts and changes and transformations pretty early on, as you become more and more aware of your examples, your qualities, how you construct your self-concept. You're going to start even looking at the world differently. When you have an experience of something and you realize you're not liking it, you can shift it in real time, because you can figure out, well, how am I coding this experience so that I'm not enjoying it, or what value am I trying to fulfill here that's going unfulfilled, or what value is being violated here, which is why I feel bad. So this will start to surface in consciousness, and the good thing about that is then you can shift it and change it. Once you know what it is, then you can make the changes. If you're learning at an hour a day on this to complete the program, well, okay, I'll tell you, I'm kind of obsessed, and I'm kind of an overachiever. I think I finished the book in a week, and I did all the exercises. So technically speaking, that's possible. If you don't have NLP background, that might take you longer. And so here's the thing. You could probably finish the program in a week. But I would say, especially if you don't have NLP training, you might want to take more like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even a month. And so I can say I finished the book and I did all the exercises, and I did get I did make transformations, but I've read the book like 6 times. So, and that's not counting all the times that I just went back to the book to refer to it. That's not counting all the practice that I've done with it. And then I created the program, so I had to go through the book again, and I had to then bring it to life online. So when you say learn it, I still feel like I'm learning it. To get through the entire program, probably take you 2 weeks to a month, but I would highly suggest that you go back through it again. And if you've done the exercises, you're probably naturally going to be motivated to do that anyway, because you're going to want to strengthen this even more. And you're going to want to, this is part self-discovery and part creation. You're discovering yourself and you're creating yourself at the same time. And that just never ends. So what this training is it's an amazing guide and template for you to do exactly that. So you can take this with you for life. I mean, I can't really say that because I've been doing it for 4 years. So we'll see what happens, 50 years from now if I'm still using it. But I think I wouldn't focus so much on just completing it. I would focus on it as a practice, and you complete it when you complete it. Just focus on the life you want to create for yourself, the you want to be, and make this a practice. And that will mean you will finish the program and probably repeat it several times. And you will probably be using it, if you're a coach, you'll be using it with your clients, which will make this go even deeper. All right, I think I over-answered your question. If I didn't, if anyone feels like that I haven't fully answered your questions, please type in another question, make it more specific. All right, I don't see any more questions coming up. I'll hang out for a few more minutes to see if there are more. I've got another one. How important is the Facebook connection? I think it's very important. I would have gotten tremendous learnings from the book if I didn't have Steve to mentor me. But it was certainly an enormous part, at least maybe 50% of my learning and my understanding and the value that I got from this model was Steve's help, his mentoring. Some people get stuck and then they just stay stuck and then they abandon the learning or they abandon the training. That's the last thing I want for you. What I want is you to come to me and say that you've hit a stuck point and I'm going to help you get out of it, or I'm going to help you move past it, move through it. And that's what Steve did for me, and that's what I want to do for you. Not everybody posts in the group, but I can tell you the people who are posting in the group right now, because people have already signed up, and then I had a pre-launch before this, so I had a beta group that has been in the group for a while. They're getting the best results because you can tell they're active. They're using the model. If they don't understand something, they're asking me. I'm giving them answers. We're moving through it. So I would say that the Facebook connection is probably about 50% of the training, and I don't mean that in time and content. I just mean that as without it, I think some people, if they got stuck or they didn't understand something, they would just stop. Whereas with the group, now you have motivation to keep going. You have a place where you can go to get answers to your questions, which is very, very important when you're learning something. I'm wondering are you asking that question because you don't have Facebook? Some people don't, and with the recent issues with privacy and all that, I can kind of understand why. It's just most people are on Facebook. That's why I use that. You have a question? Yeah. Oh, my tech guy has a question. That doesn't mean I'm not looking for your question. So if you have a question.
What do you add from the book into your training? Is
there more
additional to the book?
There's really two things. So the question is, what do I add to the training in addition to the book? The main thing is the values elicitation. That's not in the book. The values elicitation, it was funny. I went to Steve and I said, okay, so where do I go from here? Like, I know how to do this model. I know how to make it work. And there's all these qualities that, I mean, am I just like a kid in a candy store and I just go run and grab anything that I want? And he was like, yeah, sure, whatever you're interested in, go take that quality or transform yourself into that quality. I didn't like that though. I was like, I want to be more methodical and more specific about it. So I started doing values elicitations and then looking at the values and saying, okay, well, how do these values translate to qualities in a person's self-concept? So one of my values is freedom. Well, freedom doesn't really translate as a quality. You can say, are you a free person? Well, it's so broad and it has so many implications. So what you have to do is you have to say, well, am I free? What am I free to do, to be, to have? Or what do I want to be free to do, to be, to have? Or what do I want to be free from? So you have to really contextualize it. And then out of that questioning, you can start to come up with what qualities you might need in order to be free. But then there's qualities like passion and joy. And once I listed my values and I saw that passion and joy were really high up there, I thought, okay, well, am I a passionate person? And as soon as I asked myself that question, I kind of went, well, I am sometimes with some things, and sometimes I'm not. And I was like, okay, I know this is an ambiguous quality, so I need to work on this. And then there was what was joy. It was another one. I was like, well, sometimes I'm joyful, sometimes I'm not. So I need to go in there and strengthen that quality within myself. So the values elicitation and then my personal experiences. I share my personal experiences with working with a model, with working with clients, and but other than that, I mean, it's pretty dead on with how the model is taught, and I really wanted to stick to that because Steve is an incredible teacher. He's very structured as a teacher, and so I wanted to maintain that structure. I also think that people have a hard time just learning from a book. And I thought, well, if you make things more visual, and especially for people who are more auditory, so you hear me speaking during the training, you're seeing slides, you're watching demonstrations. So that's something that the book can't give you. And I think that's something that's very, very helpful for a lot of people who are just not great at learning from a book, especially something very experiential. And learning NLP from books is really difficult because it's a very experiential methodology. So you need to practice it, and it's in order to practice it well, you usually need a good demonstration point. Looks like we got another question. My new life on Mars says, I wish I spent as much time actually doing the things I'd like to do instead of daydreaming about them. Is action related to transformation, or is it habit just a grind? Wow. Okay. I can almost hear the grinding in that in your words. Okay. Well, you can certainly work on a quality of being more active. If you were here in front of me, I'd say, are you an active person? You would probably tell me either you're not, or that you are sometimes and sometimes you're not. And you might say, if I said, are you a dreamy kind of person, you'd probably say yes, and you'd be very congruent about that. So there's nothing wrong with being a dreamer, but dreams and ideas and thoughts are not much unless there's action that you take. And if it's feeling like a grind, then I can tell you right there, you're out of alignment with your values. Because when you understand what your values are, it's not an issue of, there's no issue really of motivation. That your values are your motivation. You think about brushing your teeth every morning. Hopefully you brush your teeth every morning, and hopefully every night at least. Is that something you have to negotiate with yourself? Does that feel like a grind? No. You want to keep your teeth. You want healthy teeth. You want good breath. So you've already settled on these values. So it doesn't feel like a chore. You just go and do it. You don't even think about it. So when you understand what your values are, and you understand that the behavior, or when your values are aligned with your self-concept and all the behaviors that go with that, the act of doing those things are fulfilling within itself. That's the hard part about setting goals. I'm not against setting goals, but goals, another word for goals is an expectation. And you got to be careful with that, because expectation is, if you exceed the expectation, you feel great about yourself. If you just meet the expectation, you're kind of like, okay, cool. It's what I expected and that's what I got. When you fall short of the expectation, you feel bad about yourself. But if you understand what the value is behind what created that expectation, I'll give you an example. I was coaching a woman. She was born in the U.S., I think, but she's Indian, and she has a lot of relatives in India. Well, she'd go to India periodically, and she would see all these poor people, and she'd even have poor relatives. So she kind of felt bad about it. So one of the things that she decided at a very young age is that she wanted to eradicate poverty in India, which is, it's a wonderful idealistic goal, and the sentiment behind it is beautiful. The value that drove that is beautiful. And at the age of 32, she was feeling bad about herself because she hadn't accomplished that. And she was like, there's so many things that I haven't accomplished that I wanted to accomplish. And I was just kind of blown away by that she was still holding on to it. And I said, well, that's way out of your hands. Like, how many things that are out of your control would you be up against if you're trying to eradicate poverty in India? You're talking about people who don't want who wants poverty to be there, certain greedy people who use slave labor, and I mean all these things, political issues. It's just things that are way out of your control. So I said, well, what was your intent behind that? What's the positive intent behind wanting to eradicate poverty? And she said, well, I wanted to help people. I love helping people. So I said, okay, after this coaching call, can you walk outside your front door and go help somebody? And she said, well, of course. I said, would that fulfill you? Would that make you happy? She said, well, of course. So you don't need motivation to do that. So switch from expectation to intention. And intention, another word for intention is value. So when you know what your values are, you don't have to be motivated to go toward them. It's not a grind. It's you enjoy it. I love to learn. So when I go do something like jiu-jitsu, like an NLP course or a new NLP book, the act of doing it is fulfilling my value of learning. So I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, I feel good. If you were hungry and there was a plate of food in front of you, you wouldn't think that, oh, I'm going to have to pick up that fork and I'm going to have to pick up that knife and I'm going to have to cut the food and it's going to be a grind. No, you just eat it because you want it. And you don't have to think about motivation or anything like that, because you're very clear about what you want and it's right there in front of you. And then the engagement of it fulfills you. So work on being the quality of being active, and you can put your dreams way up there as some of your highest values, but those dreams won't become reality unless you take action. So action is a part of the dreams that you value. So it's great. Dreams can be very motivating, and then you just align the activity with your dream and you'll feel good doing those activities. Okay. Any more questions? All right, there might be a little bit of a delay, so I'll hang out here for just a little bit. Just to make me feel good, type a 1 if you've purchased the program. We had some people on the call yesterday who had already purchased the program. I'm like, what are you doing on the webinar? They have all the material.
I have a question.
Oh, we got another question in real life right here.
What if you're just someone who is really afraid of change or really resistant to transformation? Is this going to help?
Well, you need this more than anybody else. Well, the resistance to change, and the resistance to change is just the attempt to fulfill another value. When people say things like, "Well, I don't want to be lazy anymore," or "I'm lazy, and that's what's holding me back," what I often tell them is, you're going to have to prove to me that there is such a thing as laziness and that you are lazy. And then they kind of look at me like I'm crazy, because they're like, well, what do you mean I have to prove it now? Because with all that is that's just another part of you trying to fulfill a different intent that only appears to be in conflict with the conscious intent. If you have a conscious intent, I want to drop 20 pounds. and then I go to do it, and I'm not able to do it because I end up splurging, eating, sabotaging the whatever I accomplished. And a lot of times people say, I just hate this part of me. I wish I can get rid of it. We don't get rid of parts, because that's like saying, oh, my hand keeps picking up food and eating it, so I need to cut off my hand. That doesn't make any sense. So there's these parts of you that you would call lazy, but that's just really another part of you that has a different intent, that's unconscious, and it appears to be sabotaging you. But what you need to do is just get conscious of what that intent is, or what that part of you is trying to do in a positive way, which is a value, and then reintegrate it with the rest of your values, and your values will align. That's why we do a hierarchy of your values. We find out which one is most important to you. And so once you know that alignment, especially context to context, you know your priorities, then it becomes very easy. And that whatever that value is that seems to, or whatever that part of you is that seems to be lazy or sabotaging you or resisting, you find out what that is, you reintegrate it, and it just falls in line with the rest of your values. So does that answer your question? Yeah. You got another one?
No,
I guess it answered your question then.
I'm not convinced yet.
You're not convinced. Well, I mean, that's the thing. You can hear my words, or you can do it for yourself and see. Okay, any more questions? Last call. What if everybody's going? Scroll, let me see, scroll up one more time. Yeah, we're done. Okay, thank you everyone. Hope to see you in the private Facebook group.